Oh my goodness.
Hello all, you're listening to the All My Friends podcast. I'm your host Liam Oliver, and in this show we're going to be diving into the commercialisation of Pride, not just in Manchester, but Pride globally. My guest today is a Perth-born Manchester-based DJ known for his eclectic sets spanning disco, Italo, techno and everything in between. A frequent collaborator with our pals at Night School, he's been appearing at events in and around the village and Manchester more generally for the past few years. When he's not playing out, you can find him on the radio, both in Manchester and further afield. On the show today, we're going to be talking about the origins of Pride, what its initial message and purpose was, how that's been hijacked, and what that means for queer spaces in the city and more generally. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome our latest guest, Jase Jeffery. Hello, Jase. Welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Not too bad, thank you. Thanks for having me on. How are you?
Really good. Had a pretty busy but fun day, and just really looking forward to this. For anyone listening and watching, we're recording at 8 p.m. So after a busy day at work, it's always quite nice to be able to sit down at the end of the day and chat to somebody about some really interesting topics. Really looking forward to it.
Thanks very much. Me too.
Cool. Thanks again for coming on the podcast. I'm really excited to speak with you. We have Pride happening in Manchester this weekend, so the timing of this podcast couldn't be better. We did time it to be at this time, so it's not just fate. We did plan it, but it's a really good time to be talking about this subject. And I'm really keen to speak to you about Pride and its history and why it might be losing its way in the 21st century. But before we dive into all that, it'd be really great to hear about your musical journey. I said in the introduction you moved over from Perth. So can you tell us a little about that and, where, when and how you found dance music and DJing and, from that initial time picking up a record or playing on a CDJ to where we are now, just the whole musical experience?
For sure, yeah. Moving over from Perth, it's probably about 5 years ago now. I moved over. It was only ever meant to be 2, but here we are. I do say that I eventually want to go back to Australia, but that has not happened yet, and I'm still nowhere near done with the UK or Manchester, so I absolutely love it as a city. I don't think I'd ever change it for the world. I suppose the catalyst for me moving to the UK was, I've always wanted to do it. I've got my mum was born in the UK, so I've got a British passport, which has made everything a hell of a lot easier with regard to visas and everything really, getting bank accounts, etc.
Just don't try and go to Europe, because that might be a struggle now.
It's funny you should say that. When I bought the tickets, because I moved over with my partner, and when we bought the tickets, it was 2 days before the Brexit vote. Mm-hmm. And I had admittedly no idea what was going on with the Brexit vote. I was working at the time, and someone who I told after I bought the tickets that I was going said, "Have you checked what's going on in the UK at the moment?" I was like, "No, why is that?" He's like, "You might want to log into the internet and have a look. They're potentially leaving Europe." And sure enough, Brexit was on the cards. It gave me a chunk of extra money that I didn't have before, thanks to the dive in the conversion rate. So that was always nice. That was also another catalyst for moving to the UK, was being able to travel with Europe. But that's, hasn't really happened over the past 18 months, the same as everyone else, really. Moved to Manchester. I suppose the draw card for Manchester for me was the music scene. It's through its veins, really. Music's in everything, and it's everywhere surrounding Manchester. Music venues. It's just, it's running through its veins, like I said. So the other reason was I didn't want to move to London. It's incredibly cliche for Aussies to move to London. And I didn't want to be one of those Aussies that just sits in their own enclave of Australians and doesn't really leave their suburb or niche. So that's essentially why I moved. But 5 years has absolutely flown by. I can't believe it's 5 years still. I don't know how long I'm going to be in the UK for, but like I said, I'm not done yet. It's now that everything's opened back up again, it's becoming reacquainted with the city has been really, really lovely, because I kind of forgot that over lockdown, and much like everyone, I'm sure has been the same. But yeah, it's certainly hasn't felt like 5 years. But music scene, I suppose, me getting into music, I could probably pin to my grandmother. Like, she's always had a massive record collection. I do remember as a kid, she got a distinct music room, like an entire room for her records, her stereo, and it was purely for music. And you were only ever allowed in there when she was in the room. So there was always this, this idealized version of what music was, and it just being a little bit magical because I wasn't allowed in that room unless there was an adult supervision. So I suppose that was the very beginning, but moving through growing up, I listened to kind of everything from, moving out of high school, I think it was Spice Girls and into Rob Zombie. So the parents obviously didn't know what was going on with my music taste, but probably moving forward a few more years, moving into dance music through, admittedly a lot of commercial stuff. I know we didn't have as much of the underground music side of things especially Perth, if not Australia, at the time, probably the late 90s. But we did have quite a large breaks movement in the late 90s. So I got heavily into breaks and I don't know, just spanning everything through most electronic music through to trance music, listening to, what was the label out of Sheffield? Gatecrasher was massive. I was obsessed with Gatecrasher for a good amount of time. Anything electronic, I had an absolute thirst for, and I couldn't get enough of it. So it was kind of fitting that I'd moved to Manchester, where a lot of this was either, almost born or at least nurtured through the city. So yeah, it's I probably started DJing maybe about 10 years ago. Kind of self-taught, got my first set of decks, probably about 10 years ago, and just started messing around and playing with records. And yeah, it was all just something that grew and grew and grew. And now I'm essentially playing at a few venues around the city. But yeah, it's just something that I think I've maxed out, but then I find something else to kind of get my teeth stuck into. So and that's what I kind of love about it. It's never ending, and the thirst is never quenched, if that makes sense. So I'm always looking for something else, or if I get bored of a genre, I start investigating another one. And it's something that I never think I'm going to get bored of. But just going back to the catalyst for me getting into music, and my grandmother, she sadly passed away. Well, it's probably about eight or so years ago now. But she left me her entire record collection, of which I think I still haven't catalogued everything on Discogs, but I think there's about 3,500 records. And that's one thing that I'm thoroughly looking forward to cataloguing. Whenever that does happen, when I do go back to Australia. But yeah, it's quite heartwarming to know that you had, not a completely inline music taste with someone, but when it's your close family member, and you find you have LPs and favorite LPs and singles that you used to enjoy with that person that you didn't really know about, it's quite a lovely feeling. So yeah, one day I will finish cataloging that, but I don't know when that's going to be, because it's a lot of work. So yeah, one day.
That's quite a nice touching story to end the first question on. That's really cool. I did want to ask a bit as well. I think you've already touched on it just through your answer there, but how did you find the cultural shift of moving from Australia to the UK? I know the obvious one is the temperature must have been quite different, but was there a big sort of was there any sort of culture shock moments when you're actually this is really, really different, or is it something you embraced really quickly and you didn't really sort of miss a beat? Was it very home away from home sort of feeling?
I must admit, it was quite home away from home. I know one thing that I wasn't shocked about, but I came to realize pretty quickly was Manchester people are so friendly, and it's I wouldn't say that they're completely alike with people from Perth, but it's still like a kind of small town mentality when it comes to people. Everyone's very receptive, and they greet you really happily, and it's very accommodating. So there wasn't a whole lot of, I mean, certainly not homesickness, but yeah, there wasn't much of a culture shock, like you said. I mean, obviously the weather's different, and it took me a while to grasp how to wear enough layers in winter. But I finally got there after a year or two. But yeah, it's there wasn't as much of a culture shock as I would have thought. I think if I would have moved to London, where I mean, I know a lot of people aren't permanently based in London and they're commuting and that sort of thing. There's a lot of expats, so I don't know if that reception would have been as warm, put it that way. So no, I think it was yeah, it was quite a lovely introduction to the UK. I think, especially when I hadn't visited Manchester before. It wasn't a completely random choice, but yeah, I didn't know anyone that was permanently linked to Manchester itself. So yeah.
Cool. I always like to throw in a few quick fire questions as well. I think that was quite nice to sort of keep us both on our toes. So I've only got 3 for you, but it'd be great to hear your answers.
Sure.
Favorite Manchester club or clubs? You can pick more than one.
Ooh, I'm gonna have to go White Hotel.
Everybody goes White Hotel. Every time I've asked that question, it's White Hotel. Do you want to elaborate why? Like,
I mean, I the first time I went there, I was literally like, how have I not found this place earlier? Because I'd heard of it, and I don't know why, I just thought it was literally a dodgy hotel that they held events in. Couldn't be further from the truth, obviously, but yeah, incredibly raw, and now is one of the, you know, is on the forefront of underground nightclubs in the UK, if not the world, which is fantastic. And it's literally a 10-minute walk from my flat.
Oh,
which also
yeah. So it's about 15 from mine to we can probably by the end of this podcast, I can probably try and zone you down. That's a bit stalkery. I'm not going to try and do that. That was a joke that didn't come off well. No, yeah, I think when White Hotel, when it first opened, me and my girlfriend we went every week for about 2 months, and we're like, this is just absolutely mad. This is like, there's nothing else. There isn't any. Well, we hadn't experienced anything else like that in Manchester. Sure. I'm sure there might have been stuff before that, or there might have been stuff we missed, but we were just like, this is absolutely bonkers. Yeah, no, it's a really, really, really amazing club. Any others?
I do like Hidden. Hidden's fantastic. And now that they've actually, you know, moved around certain parts of the dance floor and bars, etc. And it's a lot. I was there last weekend and a few weekends before, but yeah, it's got a really nice vibe now. And it's got a great layout. So I mean, it's anything essentially that's in a kind of decrepit old structure still fascinates me. Like, coming from Australia where everything's relatively new, I still get off on buildings that are falling to pieces, that have like been around for 200-300 years. So I don't think that'll ever kind of go away for me. So yeah, that kind of adds to the obsession, I suppose. I suppose the other one would be Partisan Collective. But in saying that, I haven't been to, well, I don't think they've held any events in their new space yet at Arlington Mill. But yeah, before they moved, that was a firm favourite. So
yeah, I've been to a few things at Partisan, but not much. But every time I have been, it has always been really, really good. Yeah. Next one, favourite nights.
Ooh, favourite night. I mean, it'd have to be the Freak Rave, which happened last week, and I remember saying this when they had their first event, because I think it was only their second event they've ever had, because the first one happened February before lockdown. But yeah, I mean, again, White Hotel, eclectic music in every way, shape or form. Disco, Italo, pop music as well, thrown in at like 3:30 in the morning is always a welcome change to pounding techno, and just a really, really welcoming crowd. So yeah, I mean, they only had their most recent one last weekend, but there's just something about that night. And I don't know if it's just because everyone has had a chance to reconnect over the last few weeks of partying and everything's obviously open up again, but it's just, I don't know, you see someone on a dance floor and then a week later or 2 weeks later, you see them again. And you may have only just had a passing comment or said hi, but they're quick to say hello again and like welcome you in their group. And it's just a really lovely feeling. And it's probably not only unique to Freak itself. It's just a lot of those kind of queer events on the outskirts of Manchester. There's just a lovely scene surrounding that, and the people are very accommodating. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure that's across a lot of venues at the moment as well. But yeah, I've just come to notice that over the past few weeks, and it's been a really lovely re-entering to the scene. Because like I said, I've almost forgotten what that was like, and dancing with people and connecting with people, and how much I actually yearn to have that. So yeah, Freak's definitely up there.
Amazing. And the last question I've got for you, which I reckon we're going to dive into a bit more during the podcast, but what are you actually going to be doing this Pride weekend? Do you have any nights planned? What's your sort of itinerary, if you have one?
I mean, I did want to keep this as clear as possible about a month ago, but that hasn't really worked. I admittedly usually DJ most of the weekend over Pride, and for this Pride I was like, I just want to go and enjoy it. So I didn't book anything until about a month ago, but I've got DJing at the Eagle on Friday night for about 3 hours, which is it's going to be a good introduction, or a short introduction to DJing again, because I don't know how I can cope with DJing for 8 hours over an entire night. I'm not sure how my body's going to react to that anymore, but that's a Friday night. Saturday, not much planned during the day. I think I might just have a wander and see what's going on around the village. I know that there's a charity event at Le Social. I don't know if you've heard of that, at campus across from Canal Street.
I haven't been. The new campus buildings, I've not really been and explored them yet. I know the ones on the other side of the canal from the actual street. I haven't been down there yet.
Yeah, no, it's lovely. I went there I wasn't the opening, but it was, I think it was the weekend after. But Chic, which is a relatively new queer night, has, I believe they've got a residency there most weekends, but I think there's a collective of queer nights that are helping out with a fundraiser there for AKT charity, I believe. So I wouldn't mind popping down there. It's a free event, but it's all like donations very welcome. So I do have tickets to High Hoops on Saturday night, who are obviously the gentlemen that run the Freak Rave. Unsure if I will go to that, very late anyway, because I am DJing on Sunday at, oh my God, where am I DJing on Sunday?
This isn't a test. I didn't mean to put you under pressure, man.
I've got it all written down somewhere, but my Google Calendar runs my life, so it's just symptomatic of how terrible my memory is. Tariffindale on Sunday, I believe, and then on Monday playing at Ducey Street for the Kiss Me Again gentlemen. They've got a curated weekend of dance music, so should be a nice end. And I rarely get the chance to play records, so it's a lovely establishment as well. So not too much partying, and just enjoying being able to play music for people again, which I've missed uncontrollably.
I've done it a few times since the 19th, and it's been really, really nice just to be out and playing music again and watching people dance. It's amazing.
Oh yeah, and remembering how to dance. That's one thing. Yeah. I mean, I admittedly still don't know how to dance, but yeah, synchronized movement. I'm getting there.
Cool. So thanks for doing the quick fire, and thanks for introducing yourself and
Sure.
getting us warmed up for the main conversation, as it were. We're going to be talking about the commercialisation of Pride today. Along with the negative and maybe positives, if there is any, effects that has on places like Canal Street. I've thrown that in there as a bit of a curveball. If there is any positives, maybe there is, but we can uncover that as we chat. But before we get into that, and for the benefits for any listeners who maybe don't know where Pride's come from, could you give us a quick history lesson? Tell us about the origins and the purpose of Pride, when it started and where, and how it evolved to maybe where it was in the mid-90s, or certainly maybe before what we're seeing now.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. Stonewall riots. The Stonewall Inn, I believe was the name. Was a pub in the States that it was essentially raided in, I think it was the middle of 1969, I believe. Yeah, it would be because there was a 50-year anniversary in 2019. So I mean, in the 60s or the late 60s anyway, there was a ban on selling alcohol to a homosexual person, as well as men and women couldn't dance with anyone of the same sex. So that was completely illegal. I believe that the mafia actually owned a fair few drinking establishments, one of which was the Stonewall Inn, because they saw it as a bit of a untapped market. A lot of gays still wanted to drink, obviously. So these establishments were raided quite frequently by the police, mostly just for bribe money. This happened for, I think it was a number of years until this defining moment in the middle of 1969 when the police raided. But I think there was about 100 or 200 people in the venue at the time. And they just started to refuse. They're essentially fed up, right? This was happening like every month, and they knew it was going to happen at some point every month. So they had contingency plans for like drinks, and they had signals for letting other patrons know when the police were about to come, and they had like back entrances for people to flood out. So they just got fed up with this happening. So it was this one night we essentially just fought back. So I think it triggered riots where, they didn't stop for about 3 or 4 days, I believe. It was the beginning of a yearly protest for rights for gay people. For anyone under the LGBT umbrella. And Pride is essentially a yearly recognition or protest of that night. So I know it's held at different times around the globe, but yeah, that was the initial trigger for Pride. So that was what, 52 years ago now. So which is why it's kind of, I'm sure we'll come to this shortly. A little bit disappointing to hear that has in fact not been allowed this year. Obviously not last year with coronavirus, but yeah, this is not happening this year in Manchester. So yeah.
Yeah, something that was mentioned, I think it was on the news yesterday, was like a party with a purpose. That's what it should be now. And it still should be a celebration of queer culture and gay culture, but it also, if it's losing the actual mission and message of protest, then it is just a festival, isn't it, really? Yeah, if you look at Pride today, especially in Manchester, I do feel like that original mission has been lost. So how, in your opinion, has that happened? If we use Manchester specifically as like a case study here, what's happened in this city, do you think, that sort of caused it to sort of just become what is essentially a festival, I think, in Heaton Park now, out of the city?
Yeah. Well, it's like anything, right? As soon as something grows to a certain size and there's money involved, it's probably my anti-capitalist side coming through, but things start moving away from the original message of why they were actually triggered in the first place. So it's not completely unique, I think, to Manchester or Pride, for example. Mm-hmm. It's just the way that things generally tend to go when there's money involved. Mm-hmm. And that's in no way, shape or form defending what Manchester Pride have done with the most recent retraction of donations to both the George House Trust and the LGBT Foundation. But yeah, I think it's just when things get to a certain size and there is money involved that they progress to this level where they lose connection with, the wider community, really. And I think that's where Manchester Pride has started to fall on the wayside. There is no... there isn't as much collaboration with the community as there used to be. And that's certainly shown in their retraction of this, the donations and the condom and lube scheme, which has been decreasing over time, whilst the Manchester Pride revenue has been increasing, which is, I think a lot of people are seeing this on paper and going, well, you've certainly got the money. You're using this excuse of coronavirus, which it could be completely valid and probably is completely valid. They obviously didn't make any money last year. But at the same time, when you're hearing things like the CEO taking a £20,000 pay rise over 2 years, like literally the past 2 years with the coronavirus going on, it's just a bit like all these things start to add up, and it's just people aren't very happy. They want transparency at the end of the day. I think it's a lot of the issues that people are seeing with it is they're just not getting any information out from Manchester Pride. So I feel as though the CEO, what's his name, Mark Fletcher, he needs to at least release a statement saying what the intention is. Is it going to come back? But at the moment, it's complete radio silence. So people are a little bit upset with that, which is completely justified. And they may have a view of moving towards reinstating this down the line, but we just don't know that information at the moment. So, transparency is key, I think, and they need to move forward. Otherwise, I'm seeing this in a lot of my social circles. People are just choosing not to engage with the Pride Festival. So, it's disappointing, but hopefully something good should come out of it. But I suppose we'll see.
Just a quick note there as well. I'm not trying to pick out Manchester for special criticism. It's just, obviously, we're talking about Manchester on a Manchester podcast, and I think these subjects can be quite abstract unless we use a case study. And because we're both in Manchester, it seems the best place to sort of use it as a little like a microcosm or case study. Everywhere's shit, not just us. No, everywhere's not shit. Everyone's facing the same problems. It's easier for us to talk about them problems when we can pull up CEO names and we can sort of use locations. Just a quick footnote on that. On a side note as well, before we get into the rest of the show, for anyone that's not familiar, we're also going to be talking about this concept of the pink pound quite a bit. Could you maybe give us a quick overview of what that is, and where that sort of term came from and what it entails?
It essentially refers to the purchasing power rather of the LGBT community. So, I suppose. A lot of people see that obviously a lot of businesses have pride flags on their company logos and, plastered over their front windows, etc., because it's Pride Month at the moment. I don't know. It's It's a quite a contentious topic because a lot of these businesses obviously don't do this throughout the rest of the year. Any support is good support at the same time, but a lot of businesses are catering towards that kind of pink pound factor, as in they're looking to capitalize on the situation where they could potentially get more business from the pink consumers, for lack of a better phrase. So the pink pound is essentially just the buying power of the queer community, and businesses generally at this time of year tend to try and cater to that because seeing a pride flag on a business is, it's inviting. It's great to have support, but like I said, the issue that a lot of people see with that is it's not all year round. And I'm not saying we should have pride flags everywhere all year round because it's probably not practical, right? But being able to hear like a kind of queer narrative outside of Pride would be nice to hear from a lot of companies and businesses. And I know a lot do, but I think we still have a long way to go, which is, essentially why we need Manchester Pride, right? To make these, to make sure these voices are heard. So yeah. Yeah.
You've answered most of my next question anyway, which is going to be exactly what you've just said. One thing that I did want to actually add to that as well, is obviously it's not paying, I'd say, is it too harsh to say it's just paying lip service to the queer community? It's Pride Month, we'll do this because if we're not doing it, then we'll fall behind as a brand when other brands are seen to be more inclusive. Or, what could these big brands do which is more meaningful and more lasting than just changing their logo once a month? Should it be like yearly sort of, diversity training, or should it just be, just working in just more acceptance into the businesses properly? And so it's not just oh God, it's bloody bank holiday in Manchester, let's throw some flags up. What should they be doing, do you think?
I think you hit the nail on the head with the diversity training. I mean, yeah, just showing that you've actually got a connection to the community. I mean, it's not just throwing money around to charities, which is obviously great, but you know, showing a connection to the community and spreading awareness, diversity training would be fantastic. I know there's there's still obviously a lot of underprivileged groups or factions of the LGBT umbrella, especially trans people. So just showing that you have an awareness of the issues around at the moment would be fantastic to see. And I know a lot of companies and businesses and everything do this. But yeah, seeing this as the standard would be nice to see, especially during Pride time. So if you do have a Pride flag out, then just showing what you're actually doing to communicate with people around the surrounding area, or customers, etc., or at least donating some of your profits to LGBT charities would be nice to see. So, yeah.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you know, anything's better than just turning your LinkedIn logo flag, isn't it? Really, which you do see a lot of brands do, and it's just a bit like, you know, it doesn't, you know, you're not. That when it feels like that much of like just a surface level marketing gimmick, I imagine for, you know, gay people it can be really frustrating and upsetting.
Exactly right. It certainly made a lot of people. Well, I mean, I might just be speaking for myself here, but I see the Pride flag now, and if it's not the Progress Pride flag, I don't really resonate with it, because that is the Pride flag that I see. You know, they obviously buy these flags in bulk and post them all over their shop, and it's like, well, that is not the Pride flag that we generally use nowadays, so you're not connected with what's happening right now. So I know it's still great to show some support, but the world is moving on, so yeah, cool. We'll get there hopefully.
Big question time. I've even put it in my notes. So the big question. How does the further commercialization of Pride damage LGBTQ spaces? Maybe again, we could use Canal Street as a bit of a case study here, if that works. You know, what negative effects is this having on bars and spaces in the village, and how can like Manchester's queer community combat this?
Great question. I mean, yeah, using the village as an example, I mean, I have a love-hate relationship with the village. It's such an incredible space. And before I moved to the UK, so many of my friends were like, oh my God, you're moving to Manchester. The scene there is incredible. You're going to have such a great time. And I had this idealized view of what it was going to be before I arrived. And then after the first few nights out in the village, well, I don't know, I wouldn't say I was disappointed, but it just certainly didn't meet my expectation of what it was, because obviously with the, what was that, Queer as Folk, the Russell T Davies show, which is obviously based in the village, and seeing that it was like this complete melting pot of queer culture. When I first went for the first few nights out in the village, it was almost the complete opposite. It was bar after bar after bar playing the same music, which was not at all my taste, and just a whole lot of drunk people hanging out the front. It just wasn't a really nice place to be. It was covered in litter. Yeah, it didn't really resonate with what I pictured it to be, which was a little bit disappointing. I've certainly found my niche now with certain venues in the village, and it does still have a fantastic vibe, but I feel as though, from what I've heard, it's lost a little bit of its magic. And I think a lot of that comes down to, I mean, from what I can understand, I do play at a few venues in the village. A lot of the owners are essentially just using it as a platform to make money, essentially. They're not really connected to the scene itself. And that's not singling out any of the venues that I play at. That's from what I'm hearing through social circles, they value bar takings over anything else. So it's literally just peddle as many drinks as you can, play the music that the majority of people want to hear, and that's it. So no, it's a tough one. It's yeah, I think it's just again, as soon as money's involved, it tends to take the shine and magic out of a lot of places. So yeah, and I certainly don't think I mean, it's been around for decades, right? So anything's going to have its use by date. And I'm not saying that it is past its use by date, but I feel as though it needs some form of or transformation to invite people back again and have a little bit of that magic back. So yeah, I don't know if that's answered your question, but that was a very, very tough question. So well done on that.
No, it is. Hey, I don't pull any punches on the pod. I know it's. I think one thing I'd like to add, well, I'm thinking coming off the back of what you answer there is, yes, we sort of have this commercialized strip now, the Canal Street, but surely do you not think there's still some power in there being such a bold beacon in the city, which is still, even if it maybe doesn't cater to what we'd maybe consider like underground dance music, it's still a very blasé sort of celebration of queer culture, which, in a lot of countries that wouldn't fly. And I think that's maybe still counts as something. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, for sure. No, I completely agree. I mean, it is fantastic to see, because I mean, I personally was quite worried about the village as soon as I saw all of the surrounding, construction sites going up. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, is this the end of the village? Because they are very close to the gay village, and obviously with noise and people running around at all hours around that area, there's going to be complaints. And there was a bit of to and fro, I think, with like police and councils when people did start complaining. But I feel as though we've come through the other side, and the fact that it's still there and it's still as strong as ever. I mean, we have lost a few venues, admittedly, which is probably more so because of coronavirus than anything. But seeing that it's still there and still going strong is quite heartwarming at the same time. Mm-hmm. So I think, I mean, obviously with Pride not being, or the parade, for example, not being through that area at the moment is also a little bit worrying, because that is the heart of Pride and the heart of the gay village, and having that area so valuable to people, especially when you're a younger gay, trans, lesbian, everything, growing up and having that in your city, I think that's invaluable. Because I mean, I certainly didn't have that coming from Perth. We had one gay bar and one gay club. Admittedly, one of those gay bars has started to go down the same route as a lot of the venues in the gay village, but I mean, it's still a safe space for queer people, right? So it's still a lot more than a lot of other countries and their populations have. So yeah, you're right, it's still completely unique. And I just found it completely amazing that there was an entire location in a city called the Gay Village, opposed to having two venues. So yeah, I've probably got a bit of a skewed perception of the whole area, but yeah, it's still, I mean, it's invaluable, like I said. So
you mentioned a few times there about bars going down the same way as some of the bars on Canal Street, and that leads me really well onto the next question I had, which was do you feel there's a danger of these queer spaces and queer culture becoming a tourist destination for heterosexual people? Are we already seeing that? Hen parties on Canal Street is a classic example. Let's just go to the gay village. It's a air quote here, it's a bit of fun sort of thing. There's no real understanding or reverence for the people who actually use them spaces. It's just a big night out where we'll get a bit boozy sort of thing. Should that be welcome to some degree? Having people actually who maybe aren't in the gay community coming into the village and sort of seeing maybe lifestyles that they're not normally used to. Should that be welcome to some degree? But is there also a danger in how do you balance that? There must be a danger in pushing out Manchester's real gay communities too, out of areas they certainly feel safe. So how do you sort of balance that, and where do you sort of draw the line, or is there a happy medium?
Yeah, I mean, I think there needs to be a happy medium. I mean, of the view, as with a lot of like queer spaces, they should be completely inclusive. Otherwise, we're kind of not practicing what we preach. It should be, I mean, anyone should be welcome, right? And I know a lot of venues in the village do have slightly exclusive door policies, like there's obviously men's only bars, and what have you. But it's a tough one, because I mean, admittedly they are quite annoying, the hens parties sometimes, but still it's like people coming through the door, they're happy, they're enjoying themselves, as long as they're not causing trouble, making fun, then the more the merrier. So yeah, I feel as though there does need to be that happy medium, but at the same time, the venues need to cater for everyone. I know a lot of, I've had a few issues with a couple of venues that have not had exclusive door policies or explicitly stated, but being turned away for no other reason other than, I mean, you can make your own assumptions, but I have had some friends that are like people of color or trans that have not been allowed in certain venues. And it's not, it could be down to a certain bouncer, or it could be down to, you know, what they drank that night or whatever. But at the same time, there have been a few stories of that I've heard of certain venues, which is not nice to hear. Because, I mean, everything should be completely inclusive. Otherwise, it's just, well, what's the point of having an area that's, you know, knocking out certain parts of our own community, let alone straight people. So, no, I think it needs to be completely inclusive. But yeah, it's up to the venues to kind of moderate that, I think.
Amazing. Cool. So how do we wrap up a conversation like this? I suppose it'd be nice to get your thoughts and predictions on the future in regards to Pride and the direction it's going in. Sure. Are you hopeful? A bit nervous? What, in your opinion, needs to be done to safeguard LGBTQ spaces in Manchester from the effects of, you know, further commercialisation? Really, big question. Go at that.
I mean, yeah, I was anxious about a year or so ago. I feel as though we've come out the other side, and with any, I mean, mass change globally, obviously with the pandemic, good things usually come of that. So I am quite hopeful. And I think with it's not so much nascent anymore. The queer scene surrounding the village is, I think, stronger than it's ever been before. I mean, I've only admittedly been here 5 years, but there's just new nights and new venues, and there's so many people flooding into these venues. Obviously with Homer Block coming along 2 years ago, which is 10,000 people in a space. I just couldn't fathom that amount of queer people in one area, but it sold out within God knows how many minutes, which was incredible to see. So there is a whole lot of hope at the moment, I think. And I think that is going to spread throughout the village. So yeah, I feel as though it's going to adapt, it's going to change, and the hardest is behind us. So yeah, I think it's going to come out the other side. I mean, it has to, right? It's been around for God knows how many decades. So
yeah, and I think the thing is with like cities like Manchester, some places shut, but some places open. And we wrote an article for the blog, my blog AMF, a few years ago about, you know, sort of a lot of the clubs in Manchester city centre were closing down. And then by the time we published the article, just before we published the article, a load more others sprang up. And we were like, you know, it's just this sort of natural cycle. It felt for a while. Roadhouse shut, Sankey shut. And you know, it must be the same. Like these, you know, these places, they evolve and they change, but they never really go away. Thank you as well for ending the show on a positive. Most people end up with a real bummer when they're after that. They're like, oh no, everything's burning down. Like, oh no, it's great to have someone being like, I'm really hopeful about the future. And super finally, the last of the last, where can viewers and listeners hear more about you, find out more about you and your mixes? You know, where are you playing? You've already mentioned everywhere you're playing in Pride. Do you have any other regular sets in the village or anywhere you can tell us about where we can pop down and see you? What's in the calendar, essentially?
Yeah, it's usually, I'm usually at the Eagle. Could be a variety of nights. I'm usually only on one a month at the moment. I've got a bit of a hectic schedule at work, etc. But yeah, Eagle as a mainstay. If I'm not at night school, I'm helping out with a few other events with friends. So otherwise SoundCloud, etc. You can delve through my eclectic taste, as you mentioned, which is probably more of a, I don't know what genre I'm listening to at the moment until I hit play. So feel free, if you do see me, say hi. So
amazing. We will put all links. I can't believe I forgot to do this again. I'm supposed to start every show by telling listeners to like and subscribe, but I'm going to do it at the end now, because anyone listening or watching, all the links that we've mentioned in the show will go into the show notes. And please like and subscribe. If you've listened all the way to the very, very, very end of the show, I might get a few more subscribers from this, but otherwise it was an amazing conversation. I really appreciate you coming on and talking about the topic. It's something I feel quite passionately about. Being in Manchester for so long, and I think it's something that like we all need to work on together.
Completely agree. My absolute pleasure. I appreciate the time. It's been fantastic.
No, really, really fun. Well, I hope you have a good rest of the evening and you've got something nice planned. And I really hope we do catch up in a bit because we missed each other last time. But yeah.
I just need to stop drinking so much.
Yeah. Okay. I'll catch you in a bit, Jase.
Good on you, later. Thank you.
Bye-bye.